Well, good morning. This morning we're reading from Daniel chapter 2, starting at verse 31. You saw, O king, and behold, a great image, this image mighty, and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. The head of this image was fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on the feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold all together were broken into pieces, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them would be found. But the stone which struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Nebuchadnezzar's dream is a picture of 5 kingdoms, starting with Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom. 4 human kingdoms and 1 kingdom that is not of this world. And the 4 kingdoms are represented by 4 different kinds of metal. Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, the Babylonian Empire, represented by this head of gold. The silver torso, the Medo-Persian Empire that would come after it. Then the Greek Empire, represented by these bronze thighs. And finally the iron of the Roman Empire. But this Roman Empire, this iron was mixed with clay. There was a fatal weakness in this kingdom. It was morally corrupt. And then, of course, Nebuchadnezzar, as he's looking at this image, this towering, frightening image of these multiple kingdoms, he sees this little stone carved out from a rock face by a divine hand and flung at the feet of this image, this huge, colossal thing. And as it hits the feet crumble. And this whole thing is absolutely smashed. It implodes. And then it becomes so finely ground that it blows away in the wind. And this empire, these 4 empires ultimately come to absolutely nothing. But as this is all happening, the stone grows to become a mighty mountain. And so we see God showing Nebuchadnezzar, yes, you have this incredible kingdom. And when we look at empires, when we look at governments, when we look at nations, to us they seem massive. To us they can be frightening in their power, in their the colossal nature of nations. And yet God speaks about one king, with a kingdom that is to come that will ultimately fill the whole earth. What's fascinating, of course, about all of this is that as we look on this image, we see that even in these 4 kingdoms, God was at work preparing the way for this King of Kings to be brought onto the scene. The exile of Jews from Israel and then scattered across the Babylonian Empire formed the synagogues that the apostles would later go to when they first reached those communities to share the gospel. And that's how the gospel went so quickly across the vastness of the Roman Empire. We find that the Greek Empire had prepared the world by giving it a single language to communicate in. So the gospel was able to travel very fast. The Roman Empire had built the roads that meant travel from place to place was very easy and quick, and also guaranteed peace for travelers with the Pax Romana. And so we find ideal conditions existing by the time Jesus comes onto the scene for the message of the gospel to go far and wide, internationally, within a few short years. Incredible preparation by God, using these kingdoms as tools for his ultimate king. And so as we stand and look at these great nations and things that we're part of, sometimes it's helpful just to take a step back and recognize that in our own lives, God has put us where we are with purpose, for reason. And we may not even be able to see what that reason is in our lifetime. But we can be sure that God is at work, building this master plan that one day we will stand before him in heaven and we will marvel, wow, our lives were part of this. Our stories are part of this massive story. God, your wisdom is so glorious. And so this morning, why don't you take a few moments, just quieten your soul, ask the Holy Spirit to speak to you, and just worship God for the greatness and the grandness of his kingdom, for the wonder of his kingship, and for the intimacy of welcoming us into family. Isn't that amazing? The King of Kings, our older brother who welcomes us into his Father's family. Oh, what an incredible message this gospel is, that we would treasure it in our hearts and pass it on to person after person after person, part of this ever-increasing kingdom that God is building. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow.